Creationists love to take anything they can't explain or don't want to understand and simply assert that it was the result of sky fairy thaumaturgy, or as they like to call it, intelligent design. So, were flies the result of intelligent design? As summer gets underway in the northern hemisphere of our planet, those in warmer climes will be tempted to open windows, sling open the French doors, open the conservatory, or otherwise let the outdoors indoors. And the chances are they won't have to wait long before a fly enters the building. When outside on a warm sunny day, there is nothing these crap-eating vectors of disease seemingly like more than to fly into somewhere relatively dark. And what happens when they're in that relatively dark place? They immediately want to leave and start heading for the light of the nearest window or door. Sadly, Mr. Fly's egress is invariably forestalled by the invisible force field known to us as glass. He had no difficulty whatsoever navigating the open window or door when entering, and all he had to do was go back the way he came, but you know the drill when it comes to leaving the building. Straight into the glass, every time. You can increase his chances substantially by opening the door or window more, but Mr. Fly has a newfound aversion to the outdoors and a remarkable new predilection for headbutting the force field. Even if his feeble insect brain takes him back into the room for another run-up, he'll hit the glass again. Despite becoming trapped in the first place due to an inability to go back the way he came, Mr. Fly is now more than able to retrace his path time and time again. What does this mean? Well, obviously it means that flies are stupid, but more than that, it tells us more about intelligent design. Why would an intelligent designer of the universe create something like a housefly before there were any houses? Why create stable flies? And where did barn owls live? When we consult the Christian creation account, we find no mention that the Garden of Eden had a house, stables, barns, or even so much as a potting shed. It seems then that whilst the intelligent designer was able to preempt the construction of houses by creating houseflies, he apparently didn't think we'd be smart enough to invent glass and make our homes wind and watertight. However, creationists are not to be trusted with literal readings of their holy book. After all, just as they plug any gaps in their understanding of reality with sky fairy wizardry, it comes as no surprise that when the word of the sky fairy is lacking, they have no qualms in filling the gaps with any old made-up claptrap. This often leads to hilarious results, such as the likes of Ken Ham thinking that T-Rex was perfectly created for the purposes of munching vegetation. Just look at those teeth, perfect for getting the best mastication of cellulose, and those powerful hind legs, ideally suited for chasing down carrots. And who could forget creationist Megan, my child says it's a dragon, therefore it's a dragon, fox. Unfortunately, when we apply her reasoning that something being called a dragon makes it a dragon, we rapidly find that this housefly isn't a fly, it's a house. Or at best, a flying house. And this owl is a barn. Clearly then, it's no good asking a creationist for an explanation of the visual processing limitations of flies, or the apparent incompetence of their sky fairy. We can, however, be highly confident that creationists might simply assert that there were houses in the Garden of Eden, but that they aren't mentioned in the Bible because reasons. Given that God's first humans were apparently too stupid to realise that they were naked, it's fairly unlikely that they would have had the nous to build themselves a sodding house. Had they decided to make a house, that would have involved cutting down some trees. Since God wasn't overly enamoured by his creations eating from the wrong kind of tree, it seems probable that he would have been positively incandescent had they cut any of them down. We know they weren't supplied with a house. God gave them animals and plants, and Adam got to name the animals, although we'll never know what inspired him to call a barn owl, or why he named the corpse lily before there was any death, or what something that smells of dead bodies was doing in the garden in the first place. There is no mention of a home. It does seem like the kind of thing the biblical egomaniac might mention. Look, not only have I given you animals and plants, food and water, but check this out, your very own wind and watertight home. Even if the transcendent sky wizard's first humans were supplied with a house that he carelessly forgot to mention, it wouldn't explain why people created primitive stone tools and lived in caves for such a long time if they had an example house to copy. Were Adam and Eve's descendants too stupid to build homes of their own? Well, no, their son Cain was apparently building cities, despite the population of the world being only a few people, and despite his parents apparently being less than the sharpest knives in the rack. Within a few generations, mankind had apparently got the hang of stringed instruments and the forging of iron and bronze, adding further to the mystery of just when the Stone Age was, and the vacant-minded creationist claim that everything has been going downhill since the unfortunate incident with the talking snake. If that is indeed the case, perhaps they could tell us when we can expect houseflies to become so stupid that instead of merely flying into windows, they crash into the buildings as well. Even if there were buildings to justify the creation of houseflies and stable flies, we can be sure that the houses didn't have glass windows because glass hadn't been invented. Even many hundreds of years later, when Noah was given specific boat-building instructions, glass did not feature. After all, only a completely crazy design would furnish Noah and his sprogs with light in the lower decks when mucking out. So we're still left with the problem that God invented houseflies that are unable to navigate one of the most basic features of a house. I wonder what kind of self-stultifying ad hoc attempts at rationalisation your average creationist would cook up to explain away their God's inability to design a fly that could actually see a window. Since they glibly explain away genetic and morphological similarities between animals with the phrase common design, common designer, it seems only fair to look at flies and countless other aspects of reality and return the gesture. Shite design, stupid designer. Let the special pleading begin.